a brief presentation. Christina Lockey is not available this morning. And this really is kind of an update heading into 2020 about our Green Means Go initiative. So as you know, when we adopted the MTP SCS, the board adopted this in November, we achieved a 19% greenhouse gas reduction target through our conversations with the Air Resources Board. We said the only way that we can do that and achieve that stretch target was for actually to get some state help, especially around infill development, innovative mobility. They asked us to get specific about that, and we did. This was all a budget request that happened early in the spring, and if you remember, we got shut out entirely and got nothing. But we did make an effort. We're now doing this over again. We've started earlier. We've hired KP Public Affairs. We've been and met actually with every single member of our regional delegation, and I can tell you there's a lot of support. We have met with the governor's office. We've met with the Department of Finance, who can often trip you up early in these things. And so far, so good. It is hugely helpful, and I want to emphasize this. I've said to some of you, hugely helpful that 26 of our 28 jurisdictions are on the record in support. I know the other two was really about timing and capacity. If we get all 28 this time around, and many of you and your staff actually put in what we call pre-applications. So early in 2019, your staff actually put together, these are the centers, the corridors, the sites, the vacant properties, the Civic Lab Year 2 corridors, where we would act, and here's what we would do. It's water, sewer, it's write down the cost of impact fees early on and backfill them. I can't tell you how important that's been. As you, I think, know, and I don't have to tell you, we have very little political power right now in the state legislature. We are, I think, largely, well, let's just say, I think the administration is somewhat unaware of our region and how both complex and dynamic, but how many opportunities exist in our region. So to be able to say, when somebody says, what would you do with $100 million, and we can show them exactly what each of your jurisdictions has said they would do, is hugely helpful. We might, some of you, I think, on Transportation Committee heard a presentation earlier this month on priority infill areas, or in November. We might come back and ask some of your staff in 2020 to update those applications because they are, again, incredibly helpful. So as we go forward into 2020, this is going to be a big topic of conversation. Actually, in the January board meeting, January 16th, we wanted to invite and are inviting some officials from the administration to come actually talk to us about state goals, and we want to tell them exactly what we're up to here in the region, so we begin to further cement, I think, what we're trying to do that's so innovative. We have a long list of supporters that we had last year that we're gearing up. In fact, later this afternoon, we're going to get many of them together. The Sacramento Metro Chamber, this is their #1 legislative priority for the upcoming year. In 2020, we have labor, building trades, the realtors, and a lot of others. We will be getting our delegation together in one room in January in the Capitol to really kind of show them our kind of unified support. We will be asking probably each of you and your colleagues to do some perhaps meetings in district in early 2020 to show them the projects that your staff have identified. The ability for you all to have this come up in both formal district meetings back in your home jurisdictions, in conversations when you see your delegation and members of the state legislature. I know many of you were active early this calendar year, making phone calls, doing meetings, and it was just tremendously helpful. This is an uphill climb, as you know. We didn't really pick this as our first kind of big policy strategy. It's huge. But we're trying to get a head start. We're trying to put a really good team together. We're trying to get our delegation on the page. And what I can tell you, I think that is really exciting is, as you know, we have a very bipartisan delegation. In fact, we're probably the largest region in the state with such a bipartisan delegation. And we want to get each and every one of them solidly behind this. So when push comes to shove in the budget process, this is the thing they're asking for. Again, that's no small task. So this is not a me going to talk to people across the street. This is all of you and all of your colleagues and a lot of our private and public sector partners and supporters making a huge effort on this. It's a budget request, so just like this past year, it will play out between now and June. And that's really my update. Just more to come.
Good.
Thank you for your work to date, and we're definitely going to need your help early next year.
You know, James, if you can actually gather our joint delegation into one room, if the elected's actually there, not just a staff representative, and if we were there in force, that would send an incredible message.
Yeah.
You know, if it was a packed room, you've all experienced this, right? If you walk into a packed room and everyone there is looking at you to do something on the issue they're all there for, that's a very powerful message. And because we have not brought this delegation together before, ever, with any kind of success as a group that I'm aware of, this, you know, extraordinary efforts are probably going to be necessary to move this thing down the field. And that might be one nice start to that effort of demonstrating to the region, to each other, particularly to all of them, if they can get them in the room, how many people are here in support of this. That'd be a powerful thing.
Sure.
Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you for those comments. I agree wholeheartedly, and I was just wondering, you said some really great things about some of that outreach. Will there be maybe a more laid out outreach plan that will be available to the board?
Yeah, absolutely. And bring that to you the January board meeting.
That will be at the January? Okay, great. Thank you.
And all of us will be participating. Okay, thank you very much, James. We are moving on to item number 6, and Monica, you are up.
So good morning, Monica Hernandez of your staff here at SACOG, and I am honored to be here to present some of our annual highlights for the year 2019. In your packet there is a printed handout that's also going to be available on our website as well. And I have to say, I asked Lynette for 100 minutes to present this item because that's what it would take to really talk about all of the work we've done under your leadership, but she said I needed to deal with 10, so here we go. As an organization, we do continue to focus on delivering projects and programs that focus on really bringing technical assistance to you, your communities, that build on our existing assets, focus on preserving our working and rural lands, and really advance economic prosperity through our investment in transportation. I do want to talk a little bit about our internal functions, which don't necessarily show up in this handout. Most recently, our finance team received their fiscal year 18-19 audit report with no findings for financials or programming. That's really exciting for us. Our team has implemented a lot of internal processes and checks and balances and monitoring reporting so that we could get to that place. So congratulations to our finance director and our finance team, and frankly all of our staff who work to do compliance in that space. So in April, you might recall we had, I think my photos are out of order, sorry about that. So we had our board retreat in April, and we got all of you together for a full day to prioritize the work that we would be doing, not just this year, but looking ahead longer term. And we really had clear direction that you wanted your staff to continue to work on performance-based planning tools and programs and remain committed to the goals of connected communities, vibrant places, and economic prosperity. And then you heard a deeper report from James on Green Means Go. Our team really rallied last year, brought together many cross-sector partners, and while we weren't successful, we are ready to go again in 2020. And we have a lot of lessons that we will be applying to our strategy. At the end of last year, so that's why it's included in this year, last December, we released the Housing Policy Toolkit. Right away, Sutter County applied that to their own accessory dwelling unit policies. And then currently, we have about 13 of our member jurisdictions using this toolkit to help with their SB2 local planning grants. We're really proud of that. Our team worked very hard. Also, in that same vein, we held an affordable housing tour last year for our board members and other stakeholders. We had some very unique stops in Roseville and Sacramento County where we got to hear some of the really hard challenges and actually how those challenges were overcome. Everything from rehabbing dilapidated motel in Sacramento County to the development of an affordable mixed-use housing complex in downtown Roseville.
Nice slide from Rancho Cordova there, Monica.
Thank you. We also worked with the Urban Land Institute, SACRT, and community-based organizations to look at transit-oriented development opportunities in the Meadowview Florin light rail station. And this is something that really is, while it might feel uniquely focused in Sacramento, that helps to set more framework and tools for transit-oriented development that could apply in other parts of our region. We launched into our second year of Civic Lab. This is a new pilot project, a program that SACOG started just 2 years ago. Year 1 focused on mobility, year 2 focused on commercial corridors. And we were in implementation phase as well as planning phases. This past year, when we held our developers marketplace, we drew consultants from as far away as New York City and Miami to come and see what's happening in the Sacramento region, how they could work with SACOG and our new procurement processes. I shouldn't say new. They are not necessarily new, but they are being uniquely applied to really fast track funding to our city and county teams. And we saw what we would call our first ever super teams of local consultants. We released our RFQ for technical assistance on the commercial corridors, and we had teams of what we would normally see as competitors coming together, 11 consultants locally coming in on one team to say, we want to work in these communities. We're really excited about these processes. We were very happy with that. Other pilot projects that launched for Civic Lab year 1 in this past year were the Ollie Autonomous Vehicle, the Your Ride on-demand transit project in Knights Landing. And I specifically wanted to show this because a lot of times when we talk about advancing innovative mobility or new mobility, we think just about the Ollie shuttle, we think about software. And I just want to highlight that new mobility isn't about only those things. We really have a backbone of existing transit that we want to leverage and to continue to build on. We also won an award for Civic Lab, and as you can see, we took our Civic Lab logo colors very seriously. This award is a national award from the Alliance of Innovation, and it was really the process of how we've taken design thinking, human-centered design, rapid accelerated processes, and umbrella procurements with pre-qualified vendors that led to that award. And then turning a little bit more to some of our rural communities, we continue to work both through our RUX projects and other technical assistance programs to highlight the value of our rural and working lands and the uniqueness of our rural towns and cities. We held a wildfire preparedness and recovery tour with the support of Director Veerkamp, extremely impactful, highly informative. And if you were fortunate enough to hear the board workshop with Mayor Jody Jones of Paradise, I think all of our staff were left quite impressed, and it personally was very heart-wrenching and important for us to hear. We also kicked off our Rural Main Streets Technical Assistance Grant. That was a grant from Caltrans, and that is really focused on redevelopment and reinvestment of commercial corridors in rural communities. The program is going to work with 12 of our member cities and includes 5 of our Civic Lab teams. Most recently, our consultants have been to Meadow Vista, Ileton, Colfax, Orangevale, Antelope, Galt, and Yuba City, and Loomis. And I'll just add that with that process, we actually learned that the SACOG van doesn't carry chains. And if you don't have change, there's a really long back road that you can take from Meadow Vista to Sacramento. You'll have to ask Greg about that at another time. So I want to turn really quickly to partnerships because we all know we can't do anything alone. And we've really been fortunate over the last year and much longer to have strong partnerships with the Metro Chamber, clearly working in strong coordination with El Dorado Transportation Commission, Placer County Transportation Agency to deliver the best projects and planning in the state of California, in my humble opinion. So specifically with the private sector and business, our board, not just at this retreat, but for many years has talked about the importance of public-private partnerships and really understanding the business side of an economy. So we're very grateful to be working with the Metro Chamber. They helped sponsor our most recent CTC reception. We will also be having another one in 2020. Really important to build those strong relationships with the state and the funding opportunities coming down the road. Some of the other things that we've done in partnership with the Metro Chamber, we've had, last year was the 3rd year, and next year will be the 4th year of our DC suburbs tour. We're really grateful because that creates a double dip on one trip that many of you take, as well as many other elected colleagues from across the region. And as James mentioned, the Metro Chamber has taken Green Means Go, as well as other chambers, local chambers, for their top advocacy agenda issues. Non-traditional technical assistance and partnerships that we've done, of course, we have the Youth Leadership Academy. We graduated our first class this year, and we've kicked off our first meet and greet for the class of 2020. We also launched the Sacramento Valley Leadership Program, which has 36 participants. This is a project-based learning and coaching program that includes local staff at the kind of senior level along with executive level, learning and working side by side. And that's a 12-month program, Eric, if I'm correct? 9 months, 9-month program. 13 jurisdictions are participating in that. We also worked with to support the California Mobility Center. This is a joint effort currently led by SMUD. This is a photo of a ramp-up factory in Aachen, Germany. And this is owned and operated by PEM Motors, a private company that was a spinoff of a university in Aachen, Germany. PEM Motors has now partnered with SMUD, Greater Sacramento Economic Council, City of Sacramento, Sac State, UC Davis, and Los Rios to look at bringing this kind of model of testing, development, ramp-up factory, and also micro-manufacturing. It's really exciting. We've been advising them throughout this process and working with them, and then also looking at the interconnection of how our work bringing in ideas through Civic Lab and our Mobility Accelerator can actually feed into the work that they're doing longer term. And then one of our unique technical assistants, you all may not know that we have a program called the Info Center. We're a clearinghouse for census data, and we get many requests from all kinds of outlets, including media. So this year, Capital Public Radio asked us to help support not just their research and data for their Making Meadowview podcast, but also to provide technical assistance on their community engagement and tactics. And this is one of their workshops that we helped provide mapping and helped design activities that would resonate with the residents there. And so that's a snapshot. I'm going to give you a little bit of a teaser of what I might be hopefully talking about at the end of 2020. We will be kicking off a planning grant, again from Caltrans, for the Yuba and Sutter County. It's an economic development and transportation infrastructure study for the Yuba Sutter region. We will be kicking off, or I will be wrapping up in 2020, the Commercial Corridor Task Force that will go throughout the year of 2020. We'll have more updates on our implementation of Civic Lab Year 2. We'll be able to talk about what we do in DC for our suburbs tour. You have a 2020 funding round to look forward to with a framework coming to you in the spring and multiple actions related to that. 2020 will also be a really big year for housing with state money coming to your jurisdictions locally as well as to SACOG. And then we're going to have the Mobility Accelerator. It's the principles of Civic Lab that was a 12-month process rebooted into a 12-week process. So we're really excited about kicking that off. You'll hear more in January. And then in 2020, you'll have the first year of implementation for another planning grant for a regional trails plan. And it's going to identify multi-purpose trail network that can connect residents to destinations, job sites, community amenities, green spaces, and with a priority look at serving low-income communities. So you'll be hearing more about that. And of course, we want to see our next graduates from the Youth Leadership Academy, and hopefully we'll see our Sac Valley Leadership Academy graduates. And with that, I think I'm on time.
All right, very good, Monica, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are gonna move on to item number 7, Commercial Corridor Task Force appointments. I wanna thank all the board members who expressed interest in joining the 2020 Commercial Corridor Task Force. We had more applicants than we had spots. And we will have 4 meetings this next year. That committee, this task force, will report to the Land Use and Natural Resources Committee. So that'll be the natural connection. I'm going to announce the appointments today, but as I said, we didn't quite have enough spots for everyone. We gave priority to people who had projects already in the Commercial Corridor Civic Lab group. So if you're not included and wanted to be, rest assured you'll get committee reports, lots of follow-up, as much information as you want. And we're also going to be adding private sector members to the task force, but those will not be appointed today or announced today. I think staff is still working with some of them to be sure that the appointment works. But be assured that it's a very impressive list of private sector partners, and that's probably very critical to the success of this task force, having that private sector voice. So, without any further ado, I will serve as chair next year of the 2020 Commercial Corridor Task Force. I'll be joined by Sean Harris, Jay Schneer, Robert Jankovitz, Michael Saragosa, Jeff Slowey, John Allard, Mike Kozlowski, Ricky Samayoa, Sue Frost, Joe Galdo, and Mike Dewar, who is from Roseville Transit. Is that right? He's chair of the Transit Coordinating Committee for SACOG. He is going to play an interesting and critical role in sort of networking between SACOG and all of us, the developers and the public elected officials, and the transit side, all the transit operators. So he's sort of the chosen one to do that. We're dealing with these old commercial corridors. Transit's present in virtually all of them, or at least the vast majority of them. So we thought that sort of coordination was necessary. So let's see. I think that wraps it up, although we're attending our first meeting for January 28th. Do we have a time of day for the 28th?
9 to 11, I believe.
10 a.m.? 9 a.m.?
9 a.m., 9 to 11.
9 a.m., January 28th. If you have any further questions about membership appointment, want to serve, don't want to serve, just let me know, and we can work on that. All right, that brings us on to item number 8, which I think we are not hearing today, or we are hearing today. I have a note that we don't have a workshop, so we're hearing this instead. Is that the idea? Yes.
That's fine with me.
That's the idea. Very good. So, Garrett, you are up.
No, thank you. I think we wanted to bring to the full board an item we heard on the Transportation Committee this month about work ongoing this year in support of the Economic Development or Economic Prosperity Partnership, how that affects work in 2020, both in the partnership and SACOG's own work program. So really what this is a continuation maybe of what you heard from Monica's last item of brief status update of some work we'd accomplished in 2019 and how that sets up 2020, but just with a sort of more focus on prosperity and economic prosperity. And what do we mean by the Economic Prosperity Partnership? This is a collaboration really driving towards shared economic division for the whole 6-county region, then also executing on that vision, and in particular, a subset of limited near-term actions. It's being led and championed by Greater Sacramento Economic Council, the Metro Chamber, Valley Vision, and we're fortunate to be part of that too, and it's being also served by a steering committee. You may recall that the first deliverable of this partnership, the Economic Prosperity Partnership, was work in 2018 with the Brookings Institution, doing a market assessment, again, on that full 6-county SACOG region. And really what Brookings did is they came in, they took a look at our economy, they gave us a really solid data underpinning about sort of what's been going well and what needs improvement. But importantly, they also gave us sort of a framework of, they've worked with economies across the state, nation, and globe, what they see as sort of the hallmarks of successful economies. And so they sort of stopped there, though, with sort of some data, some sort of top-level recommendations and a way of thinking about it, but not really sort of the tangible next step. So what we've been doing in this past year as the partnership is really trying to translate that top-level thinking into that tangible near-term actions. I think an important point to emphasize is that the work really does draw on data and analysis, recognizing the breadth and the diversity of the full 6-county region, including many multiple job centers, and non-tradable industries, but really what it's trying to do is hone in on a few subset of those where we think from the data we really need to be doing something different. So there'll be some strengths we're already doing great, we don't really need to be messing with those, but what are some areas we want to be doing different or really activate on? And do we really have collectively as the partnership and the region as a whole influence and control to make tangible changes on those? So just a sort of preview of what the prosperity strategy is going to be saying, sort of some of those key areas we want to be looking into in terms of clusters or some industries where we think we have opportunity. Of course, food and ag, we've been talking a lot about that through our RUX program. It was encouraging to have Brookings come in and sort of validate that sort of emphasis. Life sciences, and then future mobility. So we talk about future mobility a lot in terms of innovation. We also think there's an economic development play of positioning the six-county region as a leader in future mobility. We're going to be talking about in the prosperity strategy the workforce to serve those clusters, but also the greater region as large. And in particular, where it relates to SACOG's work, we're going to be talking about working with our economic development partners about how we can think about the investment decisions we bring forward to you as the board and how they better relate to economic prosperity and the principles we're laying out in the strategy. So that's where we're all right now. We're very close to releasing the strategy. We're just doing the final tuning on honing in on what are the near-term sort of tangible things we want to be talking about in 2020 and then holding ourselves accountable to those actions. And so that prosperity strategy will be coming out in early 2020. How this sort of nests within some larger efforts. First, we see some value in at the federal level. This will serve as what's called the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, or CEDS, which is a federal designation, which does allow access to some federal dollars. So there's some value there. Our current CEDS at the region has lapsed, so we think there's some value in the update to that. We also think there's some value for aligning this with some initiatives we're seeing out of the state. The state has recently rolled out what's called Regions Rise Together, which is really what they hope to be a sort of region-led sort of take on economic development. It's still an outstanding question if that will translate into state resources, but several of us and the partnership at large recently were down in Fresno at the California Economic Summit, where we heard from the governor and other state leaders about the emphasis of this. And so we think if we can orient our region as an early adapter on this, that would sort of set us up well. And it was encouraging at that summit to hear the Sacramento region and this work referenced in some of those state-level conversations. Of course, at the regional level, we'll continue to support the partnership in the prosperity strategy and those initiatives. And then sort of we conclude the staff report talking about how that also sort of has helped inform and infuse SACOG's own work program. You heard about Green Means Go. You heard from Monica about the Yuba Sutter Grant for economic prosperity. We think there's an opportunity in working with the partnership to help us think through economic ways to talk about our transportation projects for state and federal grants. So what we've tried to do is sort of nest it all the way from the federal down to our own work program. So a lot of work that's been done in 2019. We really hope to be coming out in early 2020 with this prosperity strategy, and then as a partnership work to implement those narrow set of priorities that we have emphasized and highlighted. And that concludes my staff report.
All right, any questions? Darren?
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Garrett, for that presentation. I wanted to just take a moment to draw my colleagues' attention to Exhibit B. If you guys have seen on your map, highlighting all the job centers. And as we're talking regional prosperity, and because we talked about a closed session item earlier, that if you look at in the city of Elk Grove, we're not even in a 4-mile buffer of a primary job center in our entire region. And our population isn't isn't necessarily something to scoff at. So we have a significant population, and it's disappointing to me personally, but so I just want to draw my attention to this because the Southeast Connector, Camera Road is a project, and it's so vital to activate the 300 acres of employment zone land we have in our city. So I just want you all to know we're trying to do our part so that we can be a little red square on here eventually one day too, and just make folks aware of that. Thank you very much.
Chair, I want to know if the illusionist extraordinaire, Director Soon, you have to pay GSAC dinner to get this. Did somebody point that out to you, or did it just come to you, or what?
No, that was he's talking about. Yeah, I was chosen at random.
He was up on stage. We'll leave it at that.
Oh, dear.
Oh, dear.
All right.
It was awesome.
Any other questions, comments?
Chair Sander, if I could just put two finer points on this. I know you've been getting updates from us time to time, but just to rewind the tape to when I arrived here, the other mid-sized regions around the country that I think we should be looking to and worried about in terms of competitiveness are aligning their public sector regional planning with their economic development attraction. They are like this, okay? So we have been undertaking this, and a lot of credit goes to Garrett and the rest of the staff. This partnership with GSAC and the Chamber and Valley Vision and others, and I know there's a lot of others. We have a steering committee of over 30 folks. number one. Number two, I'm going to give you a plug for the Chamber study mission next fall. If you want to know a place that has had Brookings come in and say you've got some economic problems and has done something about it, Kansas City. Kansas City is one of those places. You think our region is tough. They've got 2 states in their larger region. You heard from David Warm at the board retreat in April. So I would really give a strong plug for Kansas City coming up in September in terms of the Chamber study mission and what we can learn from Kansas City. And as Garrett said, I think more to come. I think it's just been important. I appreciate Scott Powell from GSEC being here, that we have that somebody doesn't say, oh, SACOG, have you ever, worked, or hey, GSEC, have you heard from SACOG on this? And I never want to have the answer being, no, we don't really talk to them very much. That would be economic death knell for us, right? So it is not not easy to align what we do and the levers that we can pull with a cohesive and coherent kind of economic prosperity strategy, but that is what we're trying to do. Stay tuned. Again, as Garrett said, we hope to have this final report with our partners next year, and we are also trying, as Director Cabalden, I think, noted at the committee meeting earlier this month, we're really trying to be focused. We are not trying to say there's 100 things we should do. We're trying to say there's 5 or fewer things we should be doing at least the next 12 months. Because when you get to these plans, it's, we want to sometimes try to please everybody, and the idea is really to focus. So with that said, I appreciate the work the staff has put into this, and I hope you understand its importance, even all the way up to being one of our 3 goals now as an agency.
And for those of you who want to introduce or want to benefit from the Schadenfreude, that, German concept of, enjoying a colleague's discomfort, Darren was referring to attachment B, right? And which has a graphic demonstrating where the job centers are, and Elk Grove didn't merit a red box, right?
Where is Elk Grove?
Well, there we go. Schadenfreude again.
Innovation somewhere.
All right. Maybe we can find you a red box for Christmas, Darren.
A red box, yes.
Needs a red box.
With the bow on it.
The red boxes are just around job centers in the region. Okay. That constitutes my report, by the way, as chair. But we did have one other item. Jeffrey, you had signed up for what looks like agenda item 27, which I don't have.
17.
Oh, there we go. All right. If you would like to comment at this point, we're happy to hear it. And board members, you can prepare your reports on transportation items. That'll be our next agenda item.
I will say thanks to James and thanks to some other thing of out of the box. In November, the state had on mobility options. And so what I'm speaking in this context is beware and yet at the same time watch in what you consider of mobility and what you consider is as far as dealing with consolidation, which is what this item is about, and where now is we want competition, we want innovation. What comes out of this I will offer to you as a board is the fact that right now we have another transportation, which is pedestrians. They're getting killed a lot this year. I suggest to you is when you go back to your respective entities, suggest to people that one day out of the month, they turn around and get out there and be a pedestrian so they understand. If we get that, maybe we will have less deaths in the community out there. The other I will offer to you is for James and to the others is Mike McGuire as a senator might be a good person dealing with the conveyance in dealing with, because he has expressed more interest in the mobility options of transportation. That meeting in November was really mostly focused about Uber, and that gave a whole enlightenment understanding. I was the first public comment on there and suggested that designated places for all of what Uber does, dropping off jump bikes, scooters, would be a very effective and helpful tool within the cities. What I got in enlightenment was the way city planners need the information and the fact that it's getting the agencies that provide that service. You have a good example right now is right outside here of this 14th and L as a bus stop, and the fact that you were adding in January a new 144 airport. You guys looked at it in paper, but you didn't come down here and look at the situation to see the convention center creates a problem and that you have very limited space at the moment. So again, if something else is as much as things are on paper, I would remind you is go out and look and see what's really out there, because sometimes what you think is in paper as you pass things and going along, reminder, what is the reality? Where do you find? Last thing I will offer is in the conversation, since I missed public comment, is I know Mayor Steinberg made the remark that I think is very effective in commenting about, you do a gate cap to cap for the Washington DC, you have not in the past done it for the Sacramento region. So here you are at the Capitol, you need to encourage and go do those things that are helpful. I was at the last ATA meeting, Sacramento Transit Authority. We had 35 people there, as Sue can verify. And in January 9th, when you hold that next meeting, unfortunately, it's also a conflict with MAC and a few other meetings. Just like for me, I will not be at the next this next board of directors because I will be over there making a plea lobbying effort at the Capitol for SSI and other deficiency representatives. But I'm glad you're talking to Van. I'm glad you're talking to Ting. That's your budget director for the Senate budget. Van is your Department of Finance and other efforts. That's, I think, a very good thing. And please keep involved. I will be watching because I have Kara meeting at this time now at 10 o'clock, and it's moved over to 9th and J Street. So it's not likely that I'm going to get from here to there. So unfortunately, I will just be reading and watching what you guys do, but I will try to make some comments back that hopefully will offer a writer's and a public guidance of what you may not be thinking of. Thank you.
All right, Jeffrey, thank you. We're moving on to board member reports. Anybody got anything they want to share? Darren?
Sorry, I'm talkative today, guys. Hey, the article, I meant to bring this up a while back and I forgot. There was an article today in the Bee about the Hyperloop. And the LA Public Works Director, we met through my other line of my day job, offered it to, give us a tour. James and I talked about it before, but I forgot to bring it up to all of you. If there's an interest, I can work with James and try to coordinate a trip. So he reaffirmed his invitation when I saw him last month back in DC. So
Can we go by Hyperloop?
wait,
1 mile.
1 mile.
talk about something that can, we can test pilot here, But anyway, if there's interest, I don't know, James, can we?
Done? Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I thought that was to me. We'll huddle and figure out if there's, how we might do that between San Diego and what I'm about to tell you about the pre-cap to cap tour.
Yeah, and there's no rush. I mean, we could do it later on, but just
Got it.
whenever.
Done?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I want to report out to this group some really exciting collaborations that have been happening in the world of transportation and transit in our region. One is the Causeway Connect that both the Regional Transit Board and the YOLO Bus Board approved a schedule and rate structure for in the last couple of weeks. This is essentially an expansion of an express bus route between the University of California Davis campus in Davis and the UC Davis Health Center campus in Sacramento. There are a couple of spots or stops along the way, and we've expanded the schedule and expanded the number of routes the number of buses that'll go. And these are the electric buses. There are a dozen of them. This will be jointly operated by RT and YOLO Bus. It's pretty exciting in a lot of different ways. It takes 2 counties, 2 transit agencies, the university, the city of Sacramento, Mayor Steinberg and Chancellor May have been really tremendous leaders in urging this along. So I think that's very exciting for us, and I look forward to having our board here be made aware of it as it unfolds. Related to that, the Yolo County Transportation District has been going, our board has been going through some visioning assessments of where we're at, what we're going to be doing together. James Corliss has come and participated in those discussions to help kick us off. We're doing a comprehensive operational assessment to see how our existing fixed route bus system is functioning within its given mission and parameters. And we're looking at how we can adapt to changing transit needs of our communities in the time to come. So I look forward to having that come about. And the last substantive item I want to share is that Caltrans has been doing some very interesting outreach and collaborative partnership building that I think is really important for us to all understand here. Two of those efforts that I'm aware of involved our own District 3 people. It's the YOLO Interstate 80 Managed Lane Project. There's a steering group that has members from West Sacramento, Davis, and Yolo County working on a route from essentially the Kidwell interchange on Interstate 80 on the west end, all the way up to and through the city of West Sacramento, looking at how we can make the throughput work more efficiently, probably in going forward with some of the managed lane discussions that we've had here. And this is not a simple or easy or short-term project, but I really appreciate the partnership and the planning and collaboration that Caltrans is exhibiting on that project. There was a community workshop in Davis about a month ago that was very well attended, and a lot of very interesting insights from people who experience the daily commutes. Similarly, the Caltrans District 3 and District 4. District 4 is the next region to the west. It's the Bay Area, basically. The District 3 and District 4 Caltrans planning groups have assembled a comprehensive multimodal corridor plan, right? Advisory committee, and that group, several of us here have also been asked to join in that effort, and that involves Interstate 80 and all of not just the lane miles, but also the transit connections. How does the Capital Corridor play in? How does the local transit agency involvement work, and what kind of infrastructure do we need? And that's essentially, as I understand, the corridor is essentially Carquinez Bridge to the east, all the way to connect with the managed lane project. So there's some very interesting new kind of thinking happening at Caltrans, I think, for incorporating local input and engagement, and I think that's really worth mentioning. And it brings me to Jeffrey's comment of Senator McGuire being on our list of people to talk with, and I'd expand it to suggest that as we look at our regional delegation, that we have some natural partners in the connecting regions, in the mega region and the San Joaquin region, and so including Capital Corridor as one of the kind of buckets of people in our upcoming advocacy efforts would be, I think, a good idea. Thank you.
No, I said thank you.
Just a couple quick things. In collaboration with the city of Placerville, Western Placerville interchange is open, second phase, with a park and ride and connection to a bike trail. So Michael, thanks for all that cooperation. Everybody else that worked on that, Caltrans as well. El Dorado County has its first roundabout, thanks to Caltrans, up in Myers. Contrary to people's belief, it works just fine, and it's working very good, even with snow and so forth. So that's a first for El Dorado County, believe me. The Camino Safety Project, in conjunction with Caltrans, we got the bid in January. We're still looking for about $15 million for the second phase of that. Would make the project much better, and especially for the locals, in our opinion. And the Highway 50 Mobility Hotspot, in coordination with the city, Caltrans, and others, is well underway. We know that corridor is extremely congested. It causes some issues, and a little two-lane narrow wagon road to Tahoe. So those discussions and planning will take place as well. And one thing, this is natural resources related. My 7 years on the board so far, we've just finally inked the Fazio contract with the Bureau for 15,000 acre feet of water. It's taken 29 years.
My goodness.
So So
Fazio contract.
we moved quick on things like that. So that's done, believe it or not. Just Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you all. Looking forward to next year.
Kim?
But these roundabouts must be contagious because we opened ours in Colfax 3 weeks ago, and so far I'm proud to say we're accident-free.
Very good. Anything else? All right, we're on to James.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of things. Reminder, there are no committee meetings in January. We will convene again as the full board on Thursday, January 16th. At that point, your incoming chair, Director Frericks, will announce your committee assignments. Also know that it's been a little dormant, but I can tell you one of incoming Chair Director Frericks' priorities will be the mega region, the whole concept that actually Director Saylor just mentioned, coordination with the Bay Area and San Joaquin County, a big role for Caltrans in this, and we actually have a mega region committee. We need to reassign and re-up our appointments to those, and that committee is going to get fired back up in 2020. Its first meeting will be February 21st in Stockton, and I can tell you Director Frericks is also interested in holding a mega region summit with some of our economic partners. I'm looking back there to GSAC in the fall of next year. Second, a number of you have been inquiring about Cap to Cap since early registration is open. And yes, we plan to do that same tour, as Monica mentioned earlier, the Friday before the Cap to Cap. We'll have more details for you. So I think the direction from me to you is register. Wait for the details. We will likely, like we did previous, have a group flight that will go the Thursday before Cap to Cap. So it'll get you in time to do the tour on the Friday and potentially the dinner that we've done on the Thursday evening. So hold on, register, and we'll have more details for you about that tour. Any questions? Yeah, Director Frost.
For some of us, we like to get our airline reservations early so we can get the direct flight. So will you have that fairly quickly so that we can make sure we get in on those good flights?
We should have that information available in January. We should have the flight option information available at the January. Lynette will work if we have it sooner. And the chamber, Susan Harris, who, if you've been on the trip, will do that coordination as well. So we'll just have less middle people doing that work. But yes, she will have that Thursday information.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes, she does. She arranges a SACOG option for us. So we're
Any
very
other
grateful to the
questions? I guess go.
chamber.
More thing. Okay. Any other questions on the Cap to Cap pre-tour? Would love to have you all participate again, and we'll have more details. And I just finally want to end up, really round out my last report of the year by again just thanking staff and Monica for this is an annual report that fits on front and back. We thought you didn't need any more information than just that, than simply that. This is a remarkable amount of work. I went back to the presentation we gave you in January of this year, and we said, here's all the things we were setting out to do in 2019. We have done all of them. We didn't necessarily win on all of them, but we've accomplished all of them. The two biggest ones, the funding round and the MTP SCS, we actually accelerated between 4 and 6 months. So I tell my staff all the time that part of what we're trying to do here is not actually say that this agency is fantastic, that this region is fantastic, but sometimes I want you to understand what your staff does here and take some credit for it, and I hope you're as proud as I am of what they've accomplished the last 12 months. So
Absolutely.
With that, I'll hand it back to
Tremendous
you.
here. Well, thank you, James. Thank you, staff. Thank you, colleagues, for a great year. Wishing you all a very happy Christmas season, holiday season, Happy New Year. And we will see you again, if not before, on January 16th. At least in this room, we'll see you again. January 16th, 9:30 a.m. We are adjourned.
Chair.
Thank you.